Here's the truth. I'm going to say it straight because this is where a lot of people talk themselves out of ever starting this content creation. If you've complained about your job, you already have content. Not someday content, not when I figure it out type of content, but real stuff to talk about right now. Sitting inside experiences you already lived through and you are still carrying around with you. Stories to tell. Most y'all got a whole bunch of good stories. Most people think content creation begins when you feel confident, when you finally buy the right camera, and when you settle on the niche that sounds smart enough and you have no experience in, you just figure the money's there. Or when you think about finally having something valuable to say, now you feel it's time. That thinking is the reason most people never post anything. Content doesn't start with confidence. It starts with lived experience. And for working people, lived experience is inseparable from work. Your job shapes how you think, how you feel, how tired you are, how patient you are, and how you see the world. Everybody shares this same vision, same experience, is relatable. You already talk about it every day without realizing it. You talk about it in the car, when the shift is over, on the phone, in the silence. You talking about it at home when someone asks, how was your day went? You pause before answering. You text your friends about it, things that happen at work and what bother you more than you expected. You replay conversations in your head late at night, thinking about what you should have said or how something landed wrong. That's not just frustration. That's raw material. The mistake beginners make is believing content needs to sound polished, inspiring, or helpful from the very first post. That belief kills momentum before it has a chance to form. Content doesn't start as value, it starts as honesty. The value comes later. After people recognize themselves in what you're saying, before anyone learns from you, they have to feel understood by you. Think about the last time you complained about your job. Maybe it was a supervisor who didn't listen and talks over people, or some coworker who barely try and still get rewarded, some shithead. Or it was the last exhaustion of waking up early that you felt staying late at the job when it's dark. You left at when it was dark, got home when it was dark, and still feeling behind financially. We can share that. We understand that. And when you complain, you weren't trying to teach anyone. You were just complaining. You were trying to process something. That processing is where the content lives. Complaints usually point directly at friction. Friction is what people connect to. Nobody connects to perfection, let alone relate to someone pretending they have life figured out. We don't need that. People connect to frustration and confusion and resentment and exhaustion and the quiet thoughts they don't feel safe saying out loud. That's why so many people complain in private but consume content in public. Creators flip that dynamic. They take a private thought and share it publicly with clarity and intention. Now, let me be clear about something important. Complaining just a vent is not content. Unfiltered ranting with no reflection doesn't build trust with people. It might get you attention, but it doesn't create connection. What turns a complaint into content is the context and clarity. It's the difference between saying you hate your job and explaining the moment that made you realize why the job drains people. It's the difference between calling your boss trash, a hoe, and explaining what happens when leadership never communicates, when they don't know how to talk to people right, they don't know how to set expectations clearly. The same experience is different, just the framing. That framing doesn't come from being a natural speaker. It don't need to. It comes from slowing down long enough to ask yourself a simple question. Why did this bother me? That question alone can give you years of material, literally years, because when something bothers you, it's usually touching something deeper than the surface moment. It's hitting values and boundaries, unmet expectations, or long-term fatigue. This works because work is the most universal experience adults share. We all share it. I would be crazy to say it might be 99% because they have the 1%, and if it's not, it's 70. Working, different industries, uniforms, different titles, but the emotional patterns they repeat everywhere. Feeling unseen and underpaid, like your potential is being wasted. feeling guilty for wanting more while still being grateful you have a job at all. Those emotions don't belong to a niche. They belong to millions of people. Scrolling through their phones after work, at work, on break, looking for something that sounds like how they actually feel. That's why the job-related content builds trust faster than motivational quotes. Motivational talks at people. I'm better than you, you do better. Work stories sit next to them. One feels distant, the other feels familiar. And another trap people fall into is thinking they need to teach something immediately, but you don't. Early content isn't about teaching, it's about signaling. And signaling to the right people that you see what they see, you feel what they feel, and you notice the things that they notice. The authority and the teaching, that all comes later. But the recognition comes first. And there's a simple way to turn everyday complaints into meaningful content without sounding bitter or reckless. You start with a moment, not a message. Something small that happened at work that stuck with you. Describe it plainly, without exaggeration. What was said, what was done, how it landed with you. And then reflect on what it revealed about work and culture and the expectations or human behavior. End it with clarity, not advice, not a solution, just the truth. That structure keeps you grounded. It prevents oversharing and protects you from spiraling into negativity. It also keeps your content human. AI cannot do that. It doesn't know the life we live. Underneath all of this is fear, though. Especially being seen is not natural for people or coworkers finding your content. That can be all bad. The fear of being judged by the judges, complaining online. Here's the part most people won't tell you, though. Your coworkers already complain. Your supervisors already know morale is low. Companies replace people without blinking. What you're actually afraid of is owning your perspective publicly. Yeah, own it. There's a difference between exposing a workplace and expressing your experience. You don't need names. No logos, no need for details that put you at risk or your job. You got to pay your bills, but you do need honesty with boundaries. Speak from your seat, not from a pedestal, not from above. And understand this clearly. People who judge you for talking about work were never going to support you anyways. The people who feel seen by your content are the ones who stay. Another truth most beginners miss is that complaining shows awareness. Awareness is the first step towards growth. People who never complain aren't always content. Often they're disconnected. They numb themselves to dissatisfaction. Talking about what bothers you is often the beginning of change, even if you don't understand what the change looks like yet. Content creation isn't about having the answers. It's about documenting questions in real time. That's why your first 50 videos don't even need to be posted. They're reps. It's all practice. That's how you learn to hear your own voice without cringing. And complaints are easy to talk about because they already live in your body. Use them as training wheels. Record privately, listen back, say what you need to say, notice the patterns and the themes. You'll start to see your niche forming without forcing it. And then one day you'll realize you keep talking about leadership or burnout or identity, money, relationships. You will know that's not something you decide on one day. It reveals itself through repetition. It'll become clearer. The message will stand out. And here's what really matters if you want this to go somewhere. The people who win online aren't the most talented. They're the most consistent. And consistency doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from having a bottomless source of material. Your job complaints are bottomless because work keeps happening every single day. Every shift gives you something new. All of the interactions teach you something. Every frustration gives you language someone else needs to hear that only they may understand. You don't need to escape your job before you talk about it. Talking about it while you're still in it is what makes the content real. So if you ever sat in your car after work and sighed before turning the key, you have content. If you ever replayed a conversation wishing you handled it differently, you have content. And if you feel like your job takes more than it gives back, that's a whole nother video of content. Stop waiting to become interesting. You already are. You're just unrecorded. Say what's already there and say it clearly. and keep it honest and let the right people find you through the truth you've been holding in all day. That's how content actually starts. And that's how you gonna get to where you trying to go.